Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Gajananam Bhudaganadi Sevidam Kavitta Jambho Balasara Vakshitham Umasudham Sogha Vinashakaranam Namami Vickneswara Bhada Pankajam Om Gajanana Vatmatkam Gajananam Maharnisham Anegadantam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalar Spatikhatrudhim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Yasyadvarada Vakradhyaya Parishatya Parashatham Vignam Nignam Tisatatam Vishwashremam Tamashraye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Visaje Bhavaroginaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Saishwararpanamastu Om Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanarthayam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Lakshmi Nada Samarambha Nada Yamuna Madhyamam Asmadacharya Varyantham Vande Guru Paramparam Om Apadamapahartharam Datharam Sarvasampadam Lokha Viramam Shri Ramam Bhuyo Bhuyo Namamyaham Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sithayam Pataye Namaha Om Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Varanane Rama Nama Varanane Nama Ithi Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Rameshwararpanamastu Astika Namo Namaha Suswagatam and welcome to the 5th week in our Essence of Ramayana series, where the entire script of Valmiki's Ramayana, which by the way is the first recorded version of the Ramayana, is being given to you on a weekly basis. And we have come as far as the Kanda, right? So we started with introduction, then we went into Balakanda, then Ayodhya Kanda, then Kanda, the Vanavasa period of Rama, Sita and Lakshmana. And we are still in that Vanavasa period, but we're coming out of the jungle, so towards the later or towards the end part of the Vanavasa period. And excuse me, today's session is called Kishkindhya Kanda, right? So just to backtrack a little bit so that your mindset is in the right direction. So we looked at Kanda, and what did we see? We saw Sita looking at a golden deer. Of course, the golden deer was Maricha in disguise. And that tells us, the lesson for us today is, we are surrounded by Maya, illusion, right? And unless you are so grounded spiritually And unless you are so grounded in terms of controlling your desire, this illusion will control you and overtake you and affect all those people around you. So when Rama goes after the deer, that is when you pursue the desire, right? You have to exercise a lot of caution. In fact, the first lesson is you shouldn't pursue desires. But Rama, wanting to make Sita happy, he pursued the desire. Therefore, he did not be as cautious as he should have been, although Lakshmana was. And of course, Maya and karma played the role when, of course, Rama calls for help. And Lakshmana hears him, but he knows that does not quite sound like my brother Rama. So he stayed put, but of course, on Sita's instructions, in fact, on her command, he had no choice but to go, right? So he goes in pursuit. So sometimes Lakshmana going in pursuit, that means viveka or discrimination. If it is not put in the right place and if it is subject to some form of submission, then the discrimination will work less and less and less for you. So Rama, of course, when viveka leaves you, discrimination leaves you, you are completely exposed. And what happens, of course, Ravana came and he abducted Sita, flies off in his Pushpaka Vimana or Akasha Vimana. And then, of course, Jatayu, right? Remember last week I told you, look at the culture of the vulture, right? It is a vulture, but it had a lot of culture. Humans, right? So adopt the culture of the vulture. That was the message from last week. Even though it knew it was no match for the grand Ravana, it still fought because that was the right thing to do. So the message from Jatayu's fight, right, even though it knew it was a losing battle and it is, most possibly going to lose its life, still it did. Then, of course, is killed by Ravana. So I mean, standing up for the right thing, right? Doesn't matter how strong you are, but if you're standing up, that means that is strength, inner strength. Of course, Rama is distraught. That shows attachment. Then, of course, they're going and now they're looking for Sita. They're pursuing it, their journey. They come across Jatayu. Of course, then, of course, I told you how Lepakshi, the town in Karnataka, has come about. Lepakshi means rise, O bird of great strength, right? Pakshi is bird. And of course, they do the last rites for Jatayu and they continue with their journey. And I left you there at Aranya Kanda. Today, I'm talking about Kishkindhya Kanda, right? This is the fourth book. And this is the empire of the monkeys. In fact, you can even say holy monkeys, right? So Valmiki had 67 chapters dedicated to this book. What is the significance of this Kishkindhya Kanda? I think the main character that was introduced in this Kishkindhya Kanda is Rama Bhakta, Rama Sevita, Rama Tudha, right? Rama Dasa, Rama Bhakta Sri Anjaneya Swami, right? Hanuman, right? So one of the significance is Rama meeting Hanuman for the first time. These two grandsires, right, in Hinduism, are meeting for the first time. And of course, through Hanuman, Rama also meets Sugriva. Remember, Sugriva's fate, as I will be talking today, is similar to Rama's fate, right? And then, of course, Rama helps Sugriva unconditionally, right? He helps Sugriva. And then, of course, Vali is, sent off. And then Sugriva is crowned Raja Abhishekam, and Sugriva is crowned as the new king of Kishkindha. And then, of course, Sugriva is in his Raja Bhoga, Jiva, right? He's enjoying his kingship. And he forgets, that Rama is waiting for him to offer help. Lakshmana and Hanuman remind Sugriva. Sugriva then sends his army, the horde of monkeys, one the northern direction, one eastern, one south, and then one west. Hanuman and Angada. Angada was the son of Vali, right? See, that way Rama is fair, right? And I'll talk to you about this later, right? How Rama was fair by crowning Sugriva as the new king, but making Angada, the son of Vali, as the Yuvaraja or the crown prince. Hanuman and Angada were in charge of the southern direction. So he sent, you all have 1 month, go and come back. Either come back with Sita or come back with the news of where Sita is so we can do the necessary. And of course, Angada is in a state of despair, and so is Hanuman. And they meet Jatayu's elder brother, Sampati, right? King of the world, right? And then, of course, Sampati tells them through his Jnana Drishti, right? Sampati was endowed with immense powers as he once, was in service of Surya. So Surya gave him the Jnana Drishti. And this is called Sampati Vakyam, right? Yes. And then Sampati gives them some directions, but he says, it's not a journey that you can make on foot because there is a huge, water passage that you have to transcend in order to get to that island. I can see that there is a lady in a beautiful garden who's in total state of despair. Then, of course, everybody was confused as to how they are going to go across the sea. It's huge. And then, of course, Jambavan, right? The bear reminds Hanuman in a conversation of who he really is and slowly reminds him of all his powers, right? That was taken away by the Devas because Hanuman was such a mischievous person. Remember, he jumped because he thought the sun was a mango and he wanted to eat that mango and all the rest of it, and he was disturbing the rishis. So Bhrigu said, you are going to forget all your powers until the time where you need it, then you will be reminded of it, and then you will get back all your powers. So Indra came and took all the powers, and of course now Jambavan was sent. Of course, Jambavan, as I said to you in the first week, is actually Brahma, right? And all the Devas have taken different forms in order to come and help Rama. And then, of course, Hanuman recognizes and realizes his powers, and of course, he takes the leap. And this is what in the first week I said to you, Samutra Langhana. Samutra Langhana. This is Hanuman leaping. So the significance of Kishkindha is all that I've just said to you. Right. So let's go back to the tail end of Aranya Kanda. Right. So they do the rites for Jatayu. Right. Complete all the rites, and of course there is also a temple built there, right? A big temple in honor of Jatayu, and it's Shiva temple. And after that they continue as per Jatayu's last sighting of the direction in which the Ravana's Pushpaka Vimana was flying, right? After many days of traveling southwards, right? And I also said to you about them arriving at the Pampa River, where they got sight of the holy Mount Sabari. And now, of course, I also mentioned to you about Sabarimalai Ayyappa Swami. And this is where the, what we call, Rishini Sabari lived, and she was waiting for Rama. So when Rama came, she served Rama, and she directs Lama and Lakshmana towards Kishkindha. She says, this is where you have to go, and my purpose of life is fulfilled because I have met you. And of course, she attains moksha, and Rama blesses her. You see, Rama is a pure soul, right? He does not know what is adharma. He only knows what is dharma, and his entire life is infused with dharma, right? Whether it is to his brothers, to his father, to his three mothers, to the subjects, to his friends, everybody was treated on an equal footing. So the soul has become so pure that it has the power, or it can amass the power, it can attract the power, right? This is called Karishya, the power, right? Shakti, Karishya Shakti, where anything he touches, turns into the purpose of that thing that he touches becomes fruitful. Just like, Ahalya, just like Viradha, all the Aksharas, all the Rakshasas that he has touched, and he has given them their original life. So he has reversed the curse, right? So Sabari also the same thing, right? She doesn't know Rama is an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Rama doesn't know he is an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, but by virtue of the purity of self, right, he is able to do that. And so are you, dear brothers and sisters, and so are you, right? And Rama is an absolute example of that. But for that, you need unadulterated discrimination and compliance with dharma, right? In your thoughts, in your words, in your actions. So she shows them the way to Kishkindha, and then she takes Pada Namaskar, and she, of course, she gets moksha, right? Then they continue. They continue, and after some days, they reach the outskirts of Kishkindha forest. Kishkindha forest near the Rishyamukha mountain, right? So this is where actually the Kanda starts. Kishkindha. To give you a brief history of Kishkindha, Kishkindha is perhaps now, in the modern present day, it's near a river called Tungabhadra River, right, near Hampi. Those of you who know Karnataka, right, Vijayanagar district, right, in Karnataka. This is Kishkindha then, but of course, sort of changed now, but the forest is still there. Anyway, at that time, it was a huge forest. And it was, fully inhabited by monkeys. So it was known as the Monkey Kingdom, right? Hampi is a very, very powerful place. Even today, if you go, right, it's extremely, I've been there to Ramabhadraeshwara temple, and it's fantastic. You should go to all these places and, just sit there quietly and just absorb, just sit quietly. You don't have to look at everything. You just sit in one point and you just absorb all the historical energy and vibrations, right? You must try it in order to understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, so Kishkindha was ruled by a monkey king called Vali. Vali was renowned for his strength and valor, right? He was a fantastic super warrior, right? And of course, I'll tell you shortly how he came to have that bhala, Anyway, so once an asura called Mayavi, right, the queen of Maya, queen of illusion, challenged him for a duel. Of course, a fierce fight erupted between Mayavi and Vali on the outskirts of Kishkindha. And Vali's brother is Sugriva, right? Sugriva was praying that his brother should be, victorious and win the battle over the Asura, or the Rakshasi. So the two entered into the battle. They were fighting for many days and many weeks, and then the battle moved until they came in front of a cave. They were fighting in front of the cave, and they went into the cave, and they never came out, both of them. Not Mayavi the Asuri, not Vali the king. Sugriva was waiting with, the other monkeys outside the cave. And waited. More than a year passed. Finally, at the insistence of all the other monkeys there, right, Sugriva was told, look, Vali is probably dead in there. The Asuri has probably eaten him. So let us all go back. We've been here for more than a year. So with a lot of sorrow in his heart, assuming his brother was dead, Sugriva went back to the kingdom, and all the elders there decided that in the absence of Vali, and Vali was recognized as having been killed in the battle with Mayavi, they of course appointed Sugriva and made him succeed Vali as the king of Kishkindha. And of course, Sugriva ruled properly. And after some years, Vali returned someday. Right? So what had happened in the cave, he had beaten Mayavi, and the other Asuras there accepted him as their new king. And of course, he ruled the dark kingdom for a few years. Then he suddenly remembered, look, I have a life outside. Then he came back. When he came back to Kishkindha, everything had changed. So he was the king, remember, when he left. Now he came back, he sees Sugriva as the king. And of course, he thought, oh, this fellow has just usurped my kingdom and has, completely put me out of picture now. So what he did, he challenged his brother for a duel. He beat him. He threw him out of the kingdom. Then he, of course, forcefully took Sugriva's wife, right? Ruma, took her, and he says, don't ever come back in here, right? So all that, if he just had a conversation with Sugriva, a lot of clarity would have come out of it. And Sugriva, being who he is, would have easily said, okay, brother, I thought you were dead. Now that you're alive, you're here. Please, can you take the kingdom back and rule it? I'm happy to give it to you, right? No conversation, straight assumption. And all the problems started because of that. So the lesson from this interaction between Sugriva and Vali is, for us today, don't jump to conclusions. And I think when I did Bhajagovindam with you, I spoke to you about the three V's. Three V's, right? First V is Vichara. Second V is Viveka. Third V is Vak. Vichara, Viveka, and Vak. You have to exercise these three things, right? Then Vichara is investigation or exploration. Viveka is discrimination. Vak is words or speech. So you see, it comes at the end. It's the third V. So basically what it means is, before you do anything, you always explore, you investigate, you inquire, vichara. Then once you've got all the facts, right? Not anything else, facts. Then you exercise sufficient discrimination, viveka, before you speak, or you give your findings, or you give your thoughts on that matter. Then things will be fine. But if you jump to conclusion, then you don't explore. There's no vichara, there is no viveka. And here, in this case, there was not even vak there was just fight, right? And there's another rather funny saying, right, that says a wise monkey is a monkey that does not monkey around with another monkey's monkey. Right? A wise monkey is a monkey that does not monkey around with another monkey's monkey. Right? Anyway, Sugriva took refuge as he was ousted out of the kingdom near the mountain called Rishyamukha. Rishyamukha was a famous rishi, right? I think I spoke about Rishyamukha in one of my Thursday sessions, the reflections. Now, this particular part of the Kishkindha, out of the kingdom near the mountain, because Sugriva knew, as a result of a curse placed on Vali by a sage, he could not come near the mountain, right? So that mountain was out of bounds. So Sugriva went to the mountains. And because Sugriva was told by Vali, get out of my sight, because if I see you next time, there is only death for you, right? So don't ever let me catch you. So he had to go to an area where he is free of Vali, right? So he went to Rishyamukha mountain, and he was living there with all the people who went with him, right? He had a large following that went with him. And of course, the rest of them stayed back in Kishkindha. Now he was there. He was accepted as, the leader of the pack there, because of course he can't call himself the king because Vali is back in action. And Vali had been overtaken by the evil streak, having been in the cave. Caves are dark. Darkness means ajnana. So when ajnana descends upon you, you are no longer a balanced person, and you will not act, in a dharmic fashion. Hence, of course, he threw Sugriva out, he took his wife, and he was ruling the kingdom, right? Anyway, so one day, some of his other monkeys came to him and said, we've seen two suspicious characters just enter the borders of Kishkindha for us. They're near the Rishyamukha mountain. So Sugriva was told, these two young fellows, who are they? He inquired. And then he said, oh, they look like, people who do tapasya. They look like tapasvinis. But the problem is they are carrying, bows, arrows, and swords. So they look like warriors, but they're not dressed like warriors. And they look like rishis, but they're carrying weapons. So Sugriva thought, could these two fellows have been sent by Vali to finish me, to find me and finish me, because Vali can come to Rishyamukha. So he called Hanuman. This is where Hanuman is first being introduced, right? Hanuman, I want you to go and investigate who these fellows are, right? Of course, Hanuman has one of his powers is, he can change his form at will, right? So he went as a Brahmin, disguised as a Brahmin. He approached these two men at the outskirts. And of course, he does not look straight into Rama. You know, the conversation, when you read it in Sanskrit, the flow is so beautiful. I mean, such prose, such language, such beauty. You know, even what's his name? Shakespeare also had looked at some of the old almanacs written in Sanskrit and also in Tamil. And in one of his works, he had commented that there is no more beauty greater than the language called, you know, Tamil and Sanskrit. So the prose, the way in which Hanuman spoke was so beautiful that anyone who listens will have no choice but to talk to him and respond to him and answer all the questions that was asked. So, of course, the prose, the way he spoke, one looks like a king, but one is dressed in a garb. One is dressed in a garb, looks like a rishi, but one carries weapons. One carries weapons, but does not seem frightening, seems to show compassion, holy from head to toe. You know, all these beautiful things. He says one and then he contradicts. He says one and he contradicts. He says one and he contradicts. Rama is telling Lakshmana, Lakshmana, listen, this is no ordinary person. This person, from the way he speaks, from his syntax, from his context, from his grammar, this is a person that has drank all the four Vedas. And indeed, Hanuman has, right? If, I mean, going sidetrack just a little bit, right? Just to digress a little bit, let me tell you that if anyone can be compared to Ravana in terms of stature, in terms of, you know, fighting ability, in terms of knowledge, it is Hanuman. And Hanuman also had the power to fight with Ravana. Let's not talk about whether he would have won or he would have lost. I'm talking about the ability to face Ravana and fight. But that was not the purpose of Hanuman's birth. The purpose was to help Rama, the normal common man, fight and face Ravana, which is what he did, right? But later, you know, once in a conversation between Surya and Narada, Narada actually asked Surya this particular, he says, look, Hanuman is so powerful. Why didn't he just kill Ravana? And Surya says, yes, he could have. You know, he has enough power to fight Ravana, right? But Ravana's boon was such that there had to be a partnership between Naraha, which is man, normal man, and Vanara. Naraha and Vanara, which is monkey. Only then he could be defeated. So naturally, the partnership is there. But yes, in terms of valor, in terms of ability, in terms of knowledge, in terms of capacity, Hanuman was equal, right? So anyway, that's the first time he's being introduced. He comes and he speaks so beautifully that Rama says, we are Dasharathanandana Putras. I'm Rama, the eldest son. This is my younger brother, Lakshmana. And of course, we were in the, you know, Aranyaka forest. And this happened, you know, the golden deer, Maricha, Ravana, Jatayu, you know. So Hanuman was so touched by all this. He says, oh my God, I have to take you to my king Sugriva and, you know, perhaps he can help you. See, Hanuman never says anything that is out of context. Even though he knows, even though he has the ability, he doesn't. He just does what he is told. So sticking to instructions sometimes is very good, despite the extent of knowledge. Then Hanuman says, my name is Hanuman. I am the messenger and the servant of King Sugriva, and I have been charged with the task of talking to you, finding out who you are, and taking you to the king. Please come. So they all, you know, so Rama says to Lakshmana, this is no ordinary person. Huh? This is a very highly learned being with extraordinary powers, which I think will be shown to us very soon. But this is Rama's thoughts, right? So, of course, he brought them to Sugriva, introduces them to Sugriva. And then, of course, Rama shares his story to Sugriva. And in return, Sugriva shares his story to Rama. When Rama told his story to Sugriva, Sugriva just listened. But when Sugriva told his story to Rama, Rama's reaction was, don't worry, I'll help you. I'll help you regain your lost kingdom. That is the dharma. So Rama was still standing by dharma and he promised to help Sugriva to get rid of Vali, to redeem his kingdom. And Vali also, and Sugriva, having heard Rama's story, didn't do anything. But what Sugriva said, he said, look, a few days ago, some of my monkeys were sitting on top of a mountain and they saw this Pushpaka Vimana going, and they saw a Rakshasa and a beautiful damsel there, which I think is, could be Sita. I'm not sure, but she threw something which was tied in a cloth at my monkeys. And my monkeys, of course, anything they find, they bring it to my attention. So they brought it to me and I have it here. So I wonder if you can have a look and then see if it has got anything to do with Sita. So Rama says, okay. And they bring a little cloth bundle, tied in a silk cloth. And of course, when Rama recognizes the cloth to be Sita's, from her dupatta, and then he opens it and he sees, a couple of anklets and, some things there. And then Rama shows it to Lakshmana. He says, do you recognize this silk yellow cloth? And look at, look at the things in here. I think they are Sita's. Lakshmana, have a look. Lakshmana, have a look. Lakshmana sees the anklets worn by Sita. And he says, brother, this is verily Sita Mas. Now, again, talk about questions, right? Someone asked me a question once. How does Lakshmana know that was Sita's anklet? That means he must have been looking at Sita's feet. Why is he looking at Sita's feet? I mean, it was actually a question posed to me, right? I can't remember. I think it was in one of my, my sessions in Oxford. Anyway, so I said to him, you are very, very correct. Lakshmana used to see Sita's feet every morning. And then another question. Before I could finish, another question. How could he? She's his elder brother's wife. An elder brother's wife is equivalent to mother. I said, let me finish. And let me take your Asuric mind away and put some Sattvic power in there, right? I said, Lakshmana, whenever he gets up the first thing in the morning, he will go and take Pada Namaskaram from Sita Mata. Whenever he looks at her feet, he always opens his eyes by worshipping her feet, by holding her feet. So do you not think that he would recognize the anklets instantly? And whenever he talks to Sita, he never looks at her face directly. That is the kind of relationship he had. So move away from these agoric thoughts. Agore, pyot, agore, agore, pya, right? Shiva Upasana is there, right? Move away from these agoric thoughts. So Lakshmana said, this is Sita Mother's, right? So Rama was very happy. There is some signs now that, oh, look, this is Sita, she's gone that way, and we can find her, right? But he was upset at the same time because the abduction has been now confirmed, right? But everybody was around him. I mean, this is life, yeah, brothers and sisters. When you're happy, you're surrounded by people who want to partake that happiness. But when you're sad, not all those people will come back and be around you to partake the sadness from you. But a few people will definitely be there, at least one, at least two. In his case, of course, in Rama's case, Lakshmana was always there. And then he's now being introduced to Hanuman. Little does he know that Hanuman is going to be beside him for eternity. And of course, Hanuman brings him to Sugriva. So you will get help. That is written and cannot be changed. Don't ask from where, who, why, when, what. Not for you to know. When you need help, he will send that help through someone. You don't have to know who, you don't have to know why, you don't have to know when, you don't have to. They will come and do something and they'll go. And then years later, when you're talking about it, somebody will ask you, so how did you get over this problem? Someone, I didn't even know this person. They came and they helped me and boom, they disappeared. And I've been trying to find them, right? So these things will happen in life. Don't be surprised when it happens, because therein lies the power of the divinity. So Rama was upset and he said, okay, but there was a new friendship with Hanuman, and of course, friendship with Sugriva, and of course, the entire clan, the monkey clan, right? So Rama said, you go and call Vali for a fight. and I will help you to, I will help you to fight him. But I won't be seen, right? I will fight and I will shoot and I will kill him. Sugriva was saying that you look more like a rishi than you look like a warrior. How do I know you even know how to fight? Right? So I want you to prove that you can actually fight. Lakshmana was getting angry. Lakshmana said, how dare you talk to my brother like that? You know what his skills of warriorship is. You know how much of Rakshasas we have destroyed in the past. You know how many rishis we have helped to complete their yajna. Have you heard of Vishwamitra? No, Rama stopped Lakshmana. I said, stop. If you want to market yourself, right? This I'm telling you now, metaphorically speaking, in today's age, right? Marketability, that means you have to show what your metal is, right? Because people just don't accept you on face value. Certainly in today's day and age, I've got this certificate, I've got this experience. No. Show me. Come for one day practicals and show me what you can do. Then I will believe you, right? So the same thing, right? So you shouldn't question, why Sugriva asked Rama to show. No. Today we do it, right? So that day also, after all, he's a monkey. Monkey mind says, no, I don't believe you, show me, right? So he's showing. Anyway, with hesitation, he asked Rama, show me what you can do. Rama was unperturbed by the challenge, right? So he, of course, if you remember, he was already gifted all the superb astras, all the fantastic, equipment has already been given to him, the bow, the arrow, the sword, the mantras, bala, thibala, all these had been given to him by Vishwamitra, Agastya, Atri, and all these rishis, great rishis. So, show me, do this. Shoot your arrow through the sala trees. It should go through at least 3 trees. And sala trees are impenetrable, right? Rama did that. And then second test was 1 tree you must uproot and it must fly 100 yojanas, And Rama also did that. Of course, Sugriva was overjoyed because he said, maybe, still he wasn't too sure. He said, maybe this guy can beat Vali, right? Now, so of course, Sugriva then goes with everybody and goes outside the Kishkindhya palace and he lets out a roar, right? The roar signifying his intention to challenge Vali for a bout, for a bout of fight. Now, Vali, in previous lives, right, talking about, he was granted a boon by Lord Brahma, who was very pleased with Vali's tapasya. And he asked Vali, what do you need? Right. Anyway, so Vali says, I want a boon that whenever I fight someone, half that person's strength must come to me. Whoever that person is, half their strength must come to me. So I become twice as powerful, they become half as powerful. And so he got that boon. Brahma said Tathastu, and of course, Vali became such a powerful person, and he fought. His strength, Valmiki says, his strength is equal to 70,000 elephants. You can imagine, like one elephant, you can imagine, 70,000. That is the equivalence of Vali's strength. So Vali became invincible. Basically, no one could actually beat him in battle, right? So Vali, of course, was very amused. He said, what? This fellow, Sugriva, has he come back? Oh my God, instead of being angry, he says, right, Sugriva, come. Because he knows Sugriva is no match. Anyway, half of the strength, whoever fights me, I will get anyway. So it's not a problem for me. Nonetheless, it is an honor in those days that anybody who challenged you to a duel, you have to accept, right? So he says, okay. And of course, Rama's plan was, you both fight at the right point, I will shoot the arrow, right? So they fought for a couple of days and Rama did nothing, right? He was just waiting. And then he didn't shoot the arrow. Everybody was wondering what is happening with Rama. He said he is going to help Sugriva, So on the second day, of course, those days they had a dharma, yuddha dharma. That means even in war, you had to do the right thing. So you start at sunrise and you finish at sunset. So when the second day finished, Sugriva came and, with a lot of disappointment, he says, Rama, you have done nothing these last 2 days. and I'm losing this battle. Tomorrow he's going to kill me for sure, right? And Rama said, it's not that I didn't do anything, or I did not want to do anything. You see, Sugriva, when you're fighting with Vali, you both look same. You both look exactly alike. So I didn't know who, and I was trying to find some way, right? So Hanuman came and said, tomorrow when you go, Maharaja, you wear a little garland, right? So that night, he said, okay. He went and collected some flowers and he, made a garland. And the morning, of course, Rama put the garland for Sugriva and sent him. And, Sugriva went, they started to fight, right? Because of them looking so identical, Rama said, I can't do anything. Now I know you are wearing the garland and Vali is not. So I know who to hit. Again, the battle started. And of course, Rama took he's got the Pinaka, which is Shiva's bow, right? And of course, he's got the inexhaustible arrows as well. So he waited for the right opportunity and he hit. The arrow pierced through 6 sala trees and lodged itself straight into the heart of Vali. And Vali fell to the ground, hurt. And he knew he was dying. But he was not so much disturbed by his injury. He was very disturbed by the fact that he was felled by a third person, namely Rama, who was not part of the fight, who was not involved in that family feud between him and Sugriva. So he accused Rama of being another me. He says, I have no quarrel with you. I have no fight with you. So how can you claim to be the son of Dasharatha, who's a fair ruler, right? You've been adharmic. You just attacked me unwarrantedly. Of course, he went on to say that, Rama lacked the qualities of truthfulness. He doesn't have the valor. He should not be a warrior. And he asked, what right have you got to interfere in the fight between me and my brother? You are a Kshatriya. You are well versed in the nuances of dharma. You are well versed in all the scriptures. How then can you deceive me? Indeed, your reputation is a lie. Your righteousness is just a pretense. If you had challenged me and fought with me rightfully, I would have defeated you. But you attacked me. You just hid somewhere and you shot the arrow because you wanted to please Sugriva and you wanted Sugriva to help you to find your wife. So you had inner motives. Do you know, Rama, that if you had asked me, I would have gone and got Sita back for you in a single day, because I could have fought with Ravana. So what are we going to do now? So Rama was quiet, he heard all these accusations. And then Rama went to him and he said, O great King Vali, it is a little sad that you should talk about dharma when you yourself do not follow the principles of dharma. Dharma, artha, kama. You have fallen, as a slave to all this dharma, artha, kama. So you are not the right person because you've overstepped the boundaries of dharma. You're not the right person to talk about this. The world, the forests, the mountains, the rivers, the lakes, all are ruled by the kings of Raghuvamsha. And it is well within our limits, whether it is the king, Dasharatha, or the king that is now in power, Bharata, who's my brother, whether I am in the forest or in the palace, my duty is to safeguard the country and serve the king. Therefore, it is within our limits to punish anyone who breaks the laws of dharma. Now, you, Vali, you are an adharmi. You are sinful in behavior and your desire has overtaken you, and you should have treated Sugriva, your brother, like a son, but you have ill-treated him. You've captured his wife. You've taken his kingdom from him. You've done all these things. And you say, I have broken the rules of dharma. You say, I have transgressed dharma. I am the king's representative. I am King Bharata's representative. And I feel that I have completed my duty by punishing you. Right? And he says, then you should have fought me, man to man, face to face. Why did you hide and kill me? I say, then Rama says to him, we are Kshatriyas. We defend dharma at any cost. Do you know how we hunt? Do you go in front of the lion and shoot? Do you go in front of the leopard and shoot? Do you go in front of your victim and you shoot them? No. When we hunt wild animals, we hide and we set various traps and various snares, and then we kill them. You, Vali, you are an animal. So I treated you like an animal and I killed you in the way animals should be killed. I have no doubts that I have behaved dharmically. You remember when I spoke to you about Aranyakandam, and I said to you, Sita asked, what are the situations? I said, there are 3 situations. You should not lie, and you should, treat your mother and all women the same except your wife. And the third thing is, she asked, so how can you be adharmic because you kill all these Rakshasas and everybody who doesn't have a problem with you? And remember what Rama said? He said, as a Kshatriya, it's my duty to protect. And I said to you, this is the same thing Krishna told Arjuna. You are a Kshatriya. Your duty is to fight. You don't worry who you are fighting. Your duty is to shoot the arrow. Who the arrow hits is not your problem. Renounce that as my doing, as my act. So once you renounce everything as my act, you're fine. That was Krishna's message to Arjuna. So the same thing Rama tells Sita. This is exactly what is happening now. He has defended dharma by killing Vali. He says, I consider you as an animal, the way you behave, the way what you have done. Hence, I'm justified in treating you as such. I do not think I acted wrongly, and certainly my conscience is clear. My conscience is very clear, Vali. So, so hearing all these words from Rama, Vali knew. You see, normally what happens at the time of death, right? The soul actually opens a window of realization, where you're given an opportunity to go back and think, oh my God, this is actually correct. So that moment of realization actually gives you a chance to reprieve, and address your karmic issues, karmic debts. So he was convinced that Rama is actually, a fine person of dharmic quality, and he was flawless in character. Right? That, how the thinking has changed now. The choice of words that Rama used. In fact, I spoke to you about how Vali became so powerful, one of his boons. In another boon, he was such a grand devotee of Lord Vishnu. And he says, I must be killed by you in one of your avatars, but you should not be God in that avatar. You should be a normal man, but a perfect man of dharmic values. Right? So in this birth, he has to become Vali and do all this, and then Rama had to come in. So at that point, he realized, oh my God, this is actually, my wish has now been fulfilled. And he says, Om Namo Narayana Namaha, and that's it, And he says, okay, Rama, thank you. And then he leaves his mortal coils. He says, bless me. And then Rama blesses him. And then he says, protect my wife and son, and guide Sugriva in ruling Kishkindha from now on. And then he left. Right? So his wife Tara, Vali's wife Tara, came to learn that her husband had been killed. Of course, all this time she knew that nobody could kill him. Right? He was killed. One thing you must understand, birth and death are inevitable. And life on earth is not permanent. Right? That is the reason why man should do so many good things in his lifetime, when he's alive, not when he's dead. So Rama, told Vali's wife Tara, actually, what you should be doing now is consoling your son so that he does not get, in a state of despair. Hanuman was consoling, Sugriva was consoling, but Tara was inconsolable. When Sugriva saw his sister-in-law weeping, piteously, he was filled with a sense of remorse. He thought, oh my God, what have I done? Have I given so much of unhappiness to my sister-in-law and to my nephew simply because I wanted a piece of land to rule? And of course, Rama sensed this, mood of unhappiness all around him, and he reminded everybody about the path they should walk on, which is the path of dharma or right action or right conduct. So he says, Sugriva, come out of this and perform Vali's last rites. Right? And then he spoke about fate. He said, no one can circumvent fate. Fate, right? I was born. It was my Rajya Abhishekam, and look what happened. I had to be banished to the forest for 14 years. But I was already prepared on how to live in the forest, because even as a child, my brother and I was sent to serve. So God prepares you by, putting so many things in your life to make you have that experience. So when that thing happens, you know you are covered, you know. So if I can give you a contemporary example, this vaccination that everybody is talking about, this COVID vaccination, right? Whether it's Pfizer or AstraZeneca or whatever they call it, what it actually does, if you do the research, right? And it actually creates a condition in your body that sees as though you've been infected by that virus, and then your body is trying to fight it. Now, once you've taken the vaccination, your body is already used to that virus. So when you're actually infected, the body will have that richness of the experience to deal with it. Or that's the philosophy that they say. So in the same way, Tara was being consoled. Tara was, of course, Vali's wife. And Rama is talking about fate. He said, fate is a sole power which rules the actions of man. No one can escape. No one can escape the rulings of fate. And Tara says, does not matter. Whatever you say to me, the fact that you have taken me away from my husband, and the fact that you was hiding, right? You were actually hiding, and then you shot an arrow and killed him. You will also lose your wife in the same way. Even after you regain her, you will not be with her, right? Number one. Number two, my husband will come back in another life to kill you in the same way you killed him. That is the sharp, right? That is the curse. And you know what happened, right? The seventh avatar was Rama, the eighth avatar was Krishna. Vali became Jara, the hunter who killed Krishna. And of course, Jara was hiding in the bushes. When he saw Krishna's toe, he thought it looked like a deer, and he let the arrow, and that killed Krishna. Karma, right? I've spoken to you about karma before. You can never escape karma, right? So fate, I mean, it's all fated, it's all destiny, isn't it? I'm fated to be here talking to you about a subject which I have absolutely minimal knowledge. And you're fated to sit there and listen, right? Destined. Fate is not partial, nor has fate got any personal gains or loss to sustain. So it is not partial, it is indiscriminate, right? It is got no gains, it has got no loss. Fate makes men suffer or enjoy, pleasure and pain. So you're actually helpless. How you can rise? Control, mind over matter, right? So with that, he talks to them, he explains, and then Vali, of course, performs the last rites. Everybody stood silent, and then, of course, Hanuman requested Rama to, instruct them on what to do next. He says, why don't you come back with us to Kishkindha and crown Sugriva as the next king? Rama says, no, my promise to my father is for 14 years, I will not step into any kingdom. The main reason why I was banished into the forest. So I'm not going to step into any kingdom. I will crown him here and now, and he can go and rule Kishkindha, right? So that happened. Sugriva's Raja Abhishekam happened there. The coronation, Raja Pattabhishekam happened there. And then, of course, he was made the king. And Vali's son, Angada, was made the crown prince. And Sugriva openly said, after me, Angada will rule this kingdom. Right? So Angada was crown prince. Of course, Hanuman was the, army, the general of the army there. So we know what happened. Then, of course, Sugriva went to rule, and Rama was waiting. You see, the onslaught of the monsoon season, beginning of the rainy season, they don't do anything. They just sit home. So Rama and Lakshmana was in the Rishyamukha mountains. They sat there. They didn't go into the kingdom. They waited for 3 to 4 months for the rainy season, the monsoon season to pass. Now, the lesson here is things will happen only when they are meant to happen and not as per your wish. Time and tide wait for no man, not even the king. And all good things come to those who wait. So this lesson of Rama and Lakshmana waiting in the forest for the rainy season to pass actually teaches us patience and teaches us the quality of having to wait for something to come at the right time, because that is the time when we are supposed to get it. So meanwhile, Sugriva was, enjoying his kingship. He got attached to the worldly attachments, and he was completely consumed by his new life of grand comfort and pleasure. So much so he forgot about Rama and Lakshmana, right? He said, I am the king. It is my right to enjoy this life. And Hanuman came and gently reminded him about, helping Lord Rama. You see, Rama didn't ask him for a favor, yeah? Rama offered to do him a favor. This, you must be very clear about this. Rama, when Sugriva told his problem, Rama automatically said, okay, I will help you. But when Rama told about his problem, Sugriva never said anything, right? But now Hanuman is telling, look, he's got your kingdom, he's kept his word. Now you should help him by offering to look for Mother Sita, But he's completely consumed by his kingship, isn't it? Completely forgot. This is what, remember when I did Bhajagovindam with you, I said to you, Yogaratova, Bogaratova, Sangaratova, Sangavihina, Yasya Brahmani, Ramate Chittam, Nandati, Nandati, Nandatyeva. Wow. One may take delight in yoga, Yogaratho, or one may take delight in bhoga, worldly attachments. Sangarato, attachments. Sangavihina, detachment. Yasya brahmani ramate chittam, unless your mind steadily delights in the thought or continuous thought of Brahman, nandati, nandati, nandatyeva. Only then will you enjoy bliss, at no other time. Nandati, nandati, nandatyeva. When yasya brahmani, only when brahmani ramate chittam, when your mind revels in the thought of Brahma continuously and consistently, then and only then will you enjoy complete bliss. The attachment here is artha, kama, right? If you attach to artha, then the kama takes over. But if you control and separate artha with dharma and kama to moksha, then of course, controlling kama leads you to moksha. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, the four purusharthas. So the lesson is that, right? Hanuman reminded him, then Lakshmana also, sent message saying that, my brother and I are waiting, but there's no news from you. If you can help us. Otherwise, after the rainy season, we're going to continue with our search. It's not a problem. Because that's what Rama told him to say. Don't threaten them or anything, Just tell them if they can help, fine. If they can't, we'll continue. So Hanuman, in a very subtle but emphatic way, tried to awaken that sense of duty in Sugriva and says, don't forget the promise, right? You see, Hanuman's sincerity, love, and devotion towards Rama cannot be surpassed by anyone, because he was at every single time, just in as much as Rama is dharmic, Hanuman was equally dharmic, right? Not to be reminded. You see, these two characters, right? There was an inexplicable attraction between Hanuman and Rama. But they didn't know. Rama had no idea who Hanuman was. To him, he was a monkey. But he knew this is no ordinary monkey. There's so much of power in this, right? But he didn't know it's an incarnation of Shiva. Likewise, Hanuman didn't know this is an incarnation of Vishnu. And there is that relationship between, in real life, right, Vishnu and Shiva. Always, right? If you look at the Ashtotra Shatanamavali of Vishnu, one is dedicated to Shiva. And if you look at the Ashtotra Nama of Lord Shiva, one is dedicated to Lord Vishnu. So these two are inseparable like that, right? Anyway, so that was the attraction. Sometimes you meet people in life. There is this inexplicable attraction you have with somebody at a spiritual level, You think, oh, have I seen you before? It seems like, we have some history, some long history. This is the kind of thing, right? So his dedication is par excellence. Anyway, so Hanuman's character and Lakshmana's character is to show equanimity, the quality of equanimity. That means being level-headed at all times. Right? Of course, in some writings, post-Valmiki, Lakshmana has been portrayed as a person who's, always flying into a rage, acts hastily. He was painted as an opposite to Rama. That's not true, really, because, if the quality of Lakshmana is being level-headed, and often he has acted as a counsel to Rama, when Rama was down, when Rama was, overtaken by attachment, it was Rama in a state of despair. It was Lakshmana who was there with him, right? So those things, even, noble people like Sugriva was a noble soul, but when, faced with the amount of desire, suddenly all that comfort, he lapses into a failure. And then, of course, duty, devotion takes the second place, desire takes the first place. That's it. So you need to understand for a moment that, he's a good soul. So when he was reminded gently, right, sometimes we need a gentle nudge, right? Not a solid cane. A gentle nudge can produce far more results than a cane, right? So cane will give you what we call a rebound reaction, right? But gentle nudge will give you a full-blown response. Full-blown response versus rebound reaction. You can work out, right? Which is better. So Sugriva then says, okay, I realize my folly. He asks Rama for forgiveness. He says, okay, I want all the monkeys. Then he sets 4 teams. One team go northwards. One team go east. One team go west. South, Angada, Hanuman, Jambavan, you all go. So he sent all his monkeys in 4 different directions and says, go. And of course, come back with Sita or come back with news of where Sita is so we can do the necessary and help Rama in his quest of, rescuing Sita. So we're not going to worry about, the north, the east, and the west, because they came back after, 1 or 2 months, and they had, gone as far as possible. And they came back and said, look, we encountered so many demons and all of that, but we couldn't find Mother Sita in the north. The northern troop came back, the eastern troop came back, the western troop came back. The only troop that hadn't come back was Hanuman, Angada, Jambavan, this group. This group was still in there, deep, searching. Of course, they had encountered many, many trials and tribulations. And some of this I'll be talking next week when I touch on Sundarakandam. Right? Anyway, so one of the things that happened during this is they met Sampati. Right? This is where Sampati Vakyam comes in, right? Sampati Vakya. Vakya means, great saying. Sampati was the elder brother of Jatayu, right? And he was just before they came to the shores of what is now called Rameshwaram, right? They meet Sampati, and Sampati, of course, knows Jambavan. Jambavan says everything that has happened, and Sampati, through his jnana drishti, he says, look, I am too old, I can't fly, I can't take you all across, but I can tell you using my jnana drishti that, across the ocean, there is a huge island, just beautiful, beauty. And in the middle, there is a huge palace. And in the palace, there is a beautiful garden. In the garden, there is a beautiful girl sitting in a complete state of despair and despondency, just looking at her reflection in the pond. And I think this is the person you all are looking for. So everybody says, okay, how do we, go across and what can we do? We have no idea. And of course, monkeys can't fly. Hanuman did not know his full powers, isn't it? He had forgotten all his powers. So he thought, well, what are we going to do? Unless we have a boat that can take us across, we can't swim, we can't walk, we can't, fly. So we are actually, lost. We don't know what to do. This is a formidable task. And unless, we can get to the island, there's nothing that we can do. So Jambavan spoke to Sampati, and Sampati and Jambavan knew that it's time for them to tell Hanuman who he really is. And in order for him to find out who he is, he has got to do a bit of soul searching himself and talk to his father. Right? His father, of course, is Vayu, one of the 5 Panchabhutas, Vayu. Next week, I'll tell you about that. So it's a sneak preview from next week. So Jambavan, Sampati tells Jambavan, you have to tell him, right? So Jambavan takes Hanuman to a side, and then he goes back to Hanuman's childhood, and then he talks about everything. And then he says, this is you. Now, I cannot make you realize your powers. I can tell you you are that powerful, but you need to go within and to realize who you are and to come out, recognize, and be conscious of your powers. Only then you'll be able to use your powers. So Hanuman was told to meditate there for a while, and of course he meditated. Then next week I will tell you what happens after he meditated. But he meditated, but Hanuman had despite his extent of knowledge, he always had a lot of respect for whatever advice was given to him, even though he may have known more than the other person who's actually giving the advice. So when Jambavan spoke to him, respectfully, gracefully, he accepted, and he said, okay, these days, this generation gap, no matter what you say, it's not heard in the right context, right? So we got to take the right lesson from all these stories, the right pointers, right? The right take homes. On the whole, we refuse to listen to elders, because we think they are not in tune with today's modern world. Value is value. Satyam is satyam. Dharmam is dharmam. Shanti is shanti. Premam is premam. Ahimsa is ahimsa. It doesn't matter which yuga you are living in. It doesn't matter whether you were living in 1432 or 2021. Those values are still the same. They hold true until today. So why should the modern generation or the young generation say, oh, you don't know, this is modern world. You come from, an ancient time. That's wrong, right? You mean to say the modern version of truth is different? Yeah, it's different. It's been completely taken out of context, isn't it? Truth is truth, lie is a lie. Today we have half truth. We have something called a white lie. What next? A green lie? A rectangular lie? A circular lie? Lie is a lie. That's it. Anyway, Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara. The same Vedas that was given in at those times still rings true today, right? So Hanuman is someone who tells you, you have to stoop to conquer. You have to stoop to conquer. And when you are in that position, you can stand tall. And that is why his, Vishwarupam is there. Hanuman first, after he realizes his power, he goes to who first? He goes to Rama first. He says, I'm going to do your bidding. I need your blessings. And Rama says, Vijayi Praptirastu. May you be blessed with only victory. Right? Vijayi Bhava. Rama gives a ring, the ring that he's wearing to Hanuman. And he says, if you see my dearest Sita, so that she knows who you are, that you are the true messenger of me, show her the ring, right? That's why there is one very nice bhajan that people sing, isn't it? Jaya Vijayi Bhava, Jaya Vijayi Bhava, Bhava Bhaya Nasha, Hanumanta, Pavana Kumara, Pavana Veera, Ati Balavanta, Hanumanta, Anjani Putra, Sri Anjaneya, Niranjana Vijayi Bhava, Niranjana Vijayi Bhava, Jaya, Jaya Vijayi Bhava, Jaya Vijayi Bhava. Hanuman was, that's why they say you have to pray to Hanuman if you want victory, right? Because the moment he sets his focus on something, unless and until he gets it, he doesn't rest. Next week when I do Sundarakandam, I'll tell you how this is proven. So here we have one person going in search of Devi, Sita. The rest are waiting to hear news about this one person who is gone. This one person has just realized who he is, right? But still, the moment he realizes he's got all his powers, he's putting all those powers for the use, the benefit of a third person. How many of us, when we get a position, when we get riches, everything, the first person we look after is ourselves? Again, the flight here is the flight of selflessness. That means the flight away from selfishness. That is the flight of Hanuman. Okay, anyway. So it is, and of course, Rama and Lakshmana waiting also at the Rishyamukha caves, not knowing what is happening. See, sometimes the message for us is life is uncertain. But someone out there is trying to do something that will impact us, that will impact our problems, that will give us some solution. The idea is to not give up hope, to continue to have faith. Right? Faith and hope are two different things that I've addressed in my reflection series on Thursdays. Right? So all this should help you become more focused. right? That there is this power, right? This power is so powerful that nothing can change it, right? It is very human for us to lose our, mental equipoise when our tensions are at a peak, when we are stressed. And it is at that time, that our trust and our faith and our hope in God should be vibrating at a high level, not completely disappear. That's when we will see help coming, right? Help will come. Definitely it will come. Right? And of course, there will be someone who comes and, comforts you or consoles you, gives you that word of encouragement, and you hardly know this person. But they'll come from somewhere, right? Or a long-term friend that you've not heard from a very long, suddenly will call and talk to you, and you will get so much of, feeling good, the good feel after you talk to this person. It's the grace of God completely. Is through Deva Anugraha that you meet certain type of people in your life. 100%, especially when you're troubled. You will not know who, you will not know when, you will not know where, you will not know why, and you certainly will not know how, but they will come. At the right time, they will come. Just like Hanuman, just like Sugriva, just like Jambavan, just like Jatayu, just like Sampati. All these people have been put there, right? So in life, we come across numerous occasions or instances where we've been completely helped by strangers. We don't know who these people are. We are thinking, oh my God, where have they come from? Who are they? What we need to understand is Lord Rama, despite his own problems, was only always trying to help. You see, 14 years in the jungle, he helped all the rishis. No personal benefit. His personal happiness was he's got his brother Lakshmana and his wife Sita. And as Sita was taken, did he stop? Did he say the whole world is finished now, I'm not going to do anything? No. He still continued his journey, and he was helped along the way, right? Different people were telling him, go this way, go this way, go this way. Finally, Sabri said, go to Kishkindha. And then, of course, in Kishkindha, he meets Hanuman, right? And of course, he meets Sugriva. So, and when he meets them, he's helping them. So the point here is, when you help other people come across or get across their own problems, your own problems will get solved over a period of time. It's called dissolution of your own problems when you provide solution. So dissolution through solution. Rama was not going to get anything from helping Sugriva by killing Vali, right? Of course, he didn't even know that it was a monkey that he was going to go and find Sita. But he helped because that's his dharma as a Kshatriya, right? Sometimes, we may not be able to repay the person who has helped us. So the lesson here is, sometimes we may not be able to repay the person who has helped us so much, but we can always willingly help out someone else who's seeking our help. Hence, Swami says, help ever, hurt never, right? And of course, if you always get help and you promise to do something, never back out on your promise. And don't make promises you can't keep. We all know the famous adage, isn't it? Promises are meant to be broken. No, don't make promises which you can't keep. Man is what his mind is. Yat mano tat manushya, yat bhavam tat bhavati. Whatever experiences he experiences in the world is according to his state of mind. If you are happy, whatever you will experience will be happy. If you are sad or depressed, whatever you look, the beautiful tree that you once admired and said, what lovely way it is, you will look at it when you are depressed and say, look how sadly the branches are dancing to the power of the wind. Completely, the tree is helpless. The same thing you look at, the perception will be different because your mindset, your mental base is different. So always keep it vibrating at a happy level. You can't find happiness outside. You can only find it inside. How? Control your thought process. Tune your mind. What Swami says, master your mind, become mastermind, isn't it? Guru Nanak says that beautifully in the, in the book, holy book. He says, he who has conquered the mind indeed has conquered the world. Guru Granth Sahib. He who has conquered his mind has indeed conquered the world. So I leave you with the thought of Rama and Lakshmana waiting in the cave. Darkness of the mind should not make you lose hope, lose faith. Then the other monkeys are waiting at the shore. Even when you see an endless shore in front of you, you still cannot lose hope and faith. And faith, love, devotion, hope that is flying to find the solution. I leave you with that. That is Kishkindhya Kanda. Next week, absolutely important. Significance of the entire Ramayana is in this chapter. It's called Sundara Kandam, the exploits of Hanuman. The journey that he's making from the shores, right? The moment he leaped from Mount Mahendra, is going to the shores of Lanka. All that he faced in this journey, all that he faced in the island, him meeting Sita Devi, and everything that happens until he comes back and tells them, I have found. That is Sundarakanda. And that has enormous benefits. Just listening has benefits, reading has 100 times more benefit. And I will tell you more about it next week. So hopefully I will see all of you next week for a beautiful book, the Sundarakanda. Harihi Om Anyada Sharanam Nasti Tvameva Sharanam Mamaha Tasmat Karunya Bhavena Raksha Rakshasa Ishvara. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramaya Pranamastu. Sai Ram.